welcome back once again to the Dr. Balmer channel. And for those of you who are new here, this is a channel where we don't hurry too much, but we look at very interesting things. Everything from LED lights, flashlights, GPU, CPU, RAM, Northbridge overclocking, 3D Mark, Time Spy, Firestrike, world records, battery chargers, and today we will have a look at this, which arrived a couple of days ago, and I've had it open, so there is a bit of a surprise in there. But basically, this is an Armac UPS, uninterruptible power supply. It's a line interactive Office 650 model, and it has a standard European socket output. And the reason why I bought this one is because, well, when you get a power outage, you want to have your hard drive, NAS, network attached storage, router, base stations for, let's say, security cameras and different smart device hubs, switches, network switches, maybe some lamps, a PC, a monitor, to work for a little bit of time until power comes back. And this was bought from Amazon, and well, when I bought it, it was September 2022, so last year, and it arrived just a couple of days ago because it was out of stock temporarily, they said. Well, it felt pretty permanent, but eventually it arrived. And actually I had in mind to buy a larger model, but I do have a use for a small one as well, for some lower power devices. And it had a price of about $76 US equivalent, but then it dropped in price to about $42 US equivalent, and that's when I decided to buy it. So it has an LCD screen. It has surge protection for fax and modem RJ45. It has a USB port for connecting it to your PC, so you can control some settings, and what should happen when the power drops out, the mains. And then we have two outlets on the back that we can plug stuff into. So let's open it and see what's inside. We can see that this styrofoam is a bit damaged. The unit itself is packed in a bag, Oops. I believe I turned it on accidentally. So let's turn it off for the moment. And yeah, this is what it looks like. It's not a huge thing, but it does have some weight to it. I suppose that the lead battery might have something to do with that. So yeah, let's see here. So this device has a bit of a there you can see it. It has a dent right there, and a little bit on the side. Let's see if we can make it visible. It's not that visible. Mainly on the top here. And well, it is steel because it's magnetic, and it has a peelable layer of plastic, and actually another peelable layer of plastic. There is also a manual. I have looked into it a little bit, so it should be fairly easy to use. Let's see, I know the exact weight of it, but we can of course find out. So let's see if we can. These scales handle a maximum of 5 kilos, so and if we have a closer look, 4.5 kilograms or 9 pounds 14.4 ounces. Yes. Okay. So let's remove the scales. And let's have a look at the specifications of this unit. So there are a few different models of this unit. And this is the simplest one. It's called Office 650. It has 650 volt amps and max power draw of 390 watts. So let's see here. Yeah, simulated sine wave. Battery classification 12 volts 7 amp hours times 1. Battery weight is 2 kilos of those 4.5. We have 2 outlets on the back, and yeah, total weight 4.6 kilos, and we have all the length, width and heights here. Battery charging time 4 to 6 hours to 90%. Backup duration 3 to 20 minutes depending on the load. So it won't last you for hours, but if you combine it with the USB output and the software, if it's decent, then maybe you can instruct the software to turn off some applications and turn off the PC or put it to sleep mode or something, hibernation, so that it draws a very tiny amount of power, and then perhaps you can survive a power outage of an hour or so, perhaps. And also, if the device beeps every 8 seconds, it means that the UPS has switched to battery mode, so power outage. If it beeps every second, the remaining backup time is shorter than 1 minute. And if it is constantly beeping, we have overloaded the UPS. And then we have some symbols on the display that should appear. Yeah, let's just see what happens when we connect it. So I'm thinking I will connect it to my watt meter and we'll see how much power it draws. But before we do that, let's just have a quick look at the backside here. So we have the USB port, we have 2 standard outlets, European, and surge protection from fax modem. And there is a fuse, and then we have the power cable. So let's connect it to AC voltage, and turn it around perhaps. So, okay, let's have a look here. The UPS says that it's off. Let me put something underneath it so we can tilt it a bit. Like this. So yeah, the UPS is off, and on the left here we can see that the battery is full, it says. And if we check the power meter, let's see if it's visible from here. Right, 16.2 watts it's drawing. So it says that it's full, but at the same time it's drawing a good amount of power. But it is actually dropping a bit. So we were at 16.1 or 2, and now we're down to 15.8 or 7. So maybe the battery is nearing a full charge. And basically my plan here is to let it charge for a while, and once it's really fully charged, if I see that the wattage drops until it stops dropping, then we can assume it's fully charged, and I will try to put a load on the outputs of it, and we will test how long the said device will be powered on off of battery power. But let's while it is charging, so let's do some theoretical calculations. Just for a bit of fun, I shall raise the camera a bit, like this, and so we had the battery inside is it's a one battery at 12 volts times 7 amp hours. So we get 84 watt hours. And basically, if we have a PC or devices, router, NAS, etc., drawing, let's say, 84 watts, then in theory they should be able to be powered on from the battery for about an hour. But we must remember that 84 watt hours, that's the capacity, the nominal capacity of the battery itself. But the battery is at 12 volts, and this device has to boost the voltage up from 12 volts to 220, 230 volts for Europe here. And that is not something that's free in terms of energy to do, which means that we will get losses. Most of the losses will be turned to heat. But let's say we have a router. I know that my router, when it's under load, it draws about 35 watts. So if we have 84 watt hours, we divide it by 35 watts, then the router should be able to stay awake for 2.5 hours, but minus some losses. Of course, the power draw isn't constant on devices like that, but on the other hand, I have a router, a NAS, a network switch, there's some security camera, base station, etc. So maybe I am drawing 80, 90 watts. And in that case, let's say I get 45 minutes out of it. And that would be pretty okay, because power outages of such extensive durations are not too common here, which is good. Usually they are a couple of minutes long, and usually they are also triggered by me if I overload some outlet. Yeah, so that's some theoretical, just quick calculation. And I can note that now the power draw is down to 14.2.3 watts, 40.1, so it's still dropping. And I will let it sit here for a while to make sure it's really topped up, and then we can try to connect something to it and turn it on, because right now it says that it is turned off. So yeah, I'll be back once the power draw has stabilized and is no longer dropping off. Alright, and yeah, it seems that the watt meter has stabilized at 12.5 watts for quite some time now. So let's assume that the battery is full. Let's try to turn the device on and see what happens. So to turn it on, we'll keep the power button pressed, and yes, let's see what it says here. So we have 227 volts AC in, and the output is 230 volts, and we are in AC mode, and the battery is full. So my plan here is to connect a couple of lights. I have one adapter of this kind. Let me just raise my camera a bit for a better overview. So I have an E27 adapter from mains, and I have an LED light, supposedly it should be 15 watts, yes. So I'm thinking, why not plug this in and see what happens. So right now the power draw is 13.5 watts on the watt meter with this device just turned on without any load. So that's quite significant wattage actually. So let's plug this in. Okay, the first light has been plugged in, and let me turn it on. So we are at 13.5 watts, so we should end up at 28.5 watts if this is 15 watts LED. And what do we get? $25.5 watts. So not quite there, but you know, somewhere around there. Okay, and then I also have a 60 watt E27 lamp bulb. It looks like this, and I'm thinking I should screw it in here. I don't know if this Chinese plasticky thing here will handle 60 watts, so I will turn on a fan to make some air movement around this bulb once I have it connected. So yeah, I will connect this one. Like this. And if I turn it on, we got light. And now we're drawing 79 watts. So I shall turn on a fan to blow on the on the light, which is 60 watts. Yeah, so we have some air movement, at least. Hopefully this doesn't get too hot. Right now it's okay. So 79 watts on the power meter. So we had a base value, let's see here, 79, and then we subtract 13.5 watts that we had for just the device. So we're at 65.5 watts. I suppose that is perhaps a decent load for a device like this. So let's have a look at what the display says. Okay, so output, we can see that the load level is at 1 out of 4. So we're not loading this a whole lot right now, which is good perhaps. So yeah, what if I now remove the AC power and see what happens. Okay, so now it's beeping, and it says a battery mode down here, and actually it says we're down to, it's not too visible, but if I lift it a bit, it says 217 volts, so we have dropped a bit from when we were connected to the mains. And the beeping can be turned off. I believe you press it once. Yes. So now we have turned it into silent mode. And yeah, so let me bring in this one. And we'll start counting. I didn't start exactly on time, but I believe about a minute past. So yes. It will be interesting to see how quickly or how long this kind of output will hold. So yeah, we're at about 70 watts. So I can feel the device getting a bit, warming up a bit. Let me measure the temperature. It's at least a black surface. So let's see here. yeah, that's 34.5 degrees Celsius or 94.1 Fahrenheit. So yeah, the room temperature is let's see here. Well, I can measure temperature of yeah, 25.8 degrees ambient. So I will it's not too visible, is it? So yeah, it's now it's more visible. Yeah, I will let it run for a while and then we can inspect where we are in a little bit of time. Yeah, right now we're at 34.9 degrees Celsius, so climbing very slowly. Okay, so we're 17.5 minutes, so let's say 19 minutes then into the test, and we have used up approximately half of the battery capacity. So yeah, let's see how this this develops. Alright, so now something interesting happened. The output voltage was bumped up a bit to 225 volts suddenly, and I noticed that the light bulb, especially the one on the right here, the purely resistive light bulb, became quite a bit brighter actually. So that's interesting behavior. Let's check the temperature of the unit. It has warmed up a little bit more. I can feel. So let's see if we can find the, yeah, 36.1 degrees Celsius or 97 Fahrenheit. So yeah, a couple degrees more than last time we measured. So yeah, we have passed 20 minutes, so adding up the 1 or 1.5 minutes before I turn the timer on, we're at 21.5 minutes or so, and still going strong so far. I can hear a fan in the unit, but it's not too loud, so it's okay. Of course, the output load isn't very high either. We're only loading it to 1/4 of its full capacity. Okay, interestingly, we're down to our last bit of battery capacity remaining, and the voltage has been dropping a bit, so we're down to 214 again from 225 or so, once the voltage ramped up a bit suddenly. So yeah, 28 minutes on the timer, and in reality then perhaps 29.5, adding the extra minute there. Okay, so now we're getting some beeping, which I believe we can't turn off. No. So we have about less than 1 minute left of runtime. And the voltage just boosted up again. So yeah, I shall plug the power back in. Okay, so I plugged it in. Right before it would have cut off. And I did that for two reasons. One, not to completely make a deep discharge of the battery, but then also because right now it's about 2 a.m. Here, and since I have neighbors, I suspect they could believe that the beeping was a bit annoying if they would wake up. So sorry about that, both to you and my neighbors. But yeah, according to the manual, once it starts beeping like that, the battery is pretty much drained. So okay, very interesting. And we got yeah, I think we had about half a minute left or so. So 30 minutes on this one, plus 1.5 minutes extra before I turn this on. So About 31.5 minutes. Yeah. And now that we are charging again, we get 84.4 watts. So if I turn the 15-watt lamp off, yeah, so it was in reality about 11.5 watts. Perhaps it decreased the wattage a bit after it warmed up. This one. And now it's showing 73 watts. So if I turn off the 60-watt lamp here, let's see what happens then. Oh, all right, so we're down to 19 watts. And yeah, it seems to me then that that is the about 20 watts is the charging power of this unit, and then it seems to be dropping off a bit as the battery gets more and more charged up to its capacity. So yeah, we can now see that we are indeed charging, and we have 228 volts in and 229 volts out, and no load applied. We have AC mode. So yeah. So what do I think of this then? Well, it was a bit of interesting behavior a couple of times. So once the battery was about half full, then something happened, and the output voltage jumped up a bit, from about 217 to 225 volts. And that was perhaps a bit unexpected. At least I didn't anticipate that it would do that. If we have a look at the watt meter now, we have actually increased the wattage a bit. So we're up to 20.5 watts. And right before it jumped up, it was down to about 18 watts or so. Or 18.5 or something like that. Yeah. So I think that this is perhaps part one of exploring the Armac 650 UPS, uninterruptible power supply. I like the form factor. It's pretty decently small actually. It's a bit long or deep if you want. But I like the fact that yeah, it only has one button, so it's pretty easy to operate. You can turn the sound off, at least until you get to the last minute of battery operation, when it starts beeping every second. But up until then, you can turn the alarm sound off. Yeah, it's nice to have a display with some voltages, and you know what you have set. You see the battery capacity, you see the output, the load on the unit. But what do I believe about the runtime? So I think that we drew about 70 watts then. The 60 watt lamp plus the 15 watt one over here, which was more like 10 watts once it warmed up. So and we got about 31.5 minutes, I think. So if we make a calculation here then, so 31.5 minutes out of 60, that's 0.525 hours times let's say 72 watts on average then. That's 37.8 watt hours. So let's round it up to 38 watt hours. And well, the battery capacity we said was 84. So if we subtract 84, we seem to be losing about 46.2 watt hours of usable energy. What does that mean then? Well, like I said before, quite a bit of power is probably lost in the voltage conversion. So not only going from 12 volts to 230 volts or so, 220, 230 volts here, but also from DC to AC. And then, of course, the device itself draws a bit of power. I mean, the display is not perhaps more than a watt or so, but there's some electronics inside, apart from the conversion boost converter. And of course, all the components then generate heat from the conversion, and there's also a fan inside that I could hear, and it draws a couple of watts as well. So yeah, I don't know what efficiency we can expect from this device, but I'm just checking the manual here to see if the table says something about efficiency. So noise level less than 45, I suppose when the fan kicks in we get some noise, but yeah, I don't see really any efficiency numbers here, but if we check here, it says backup duration 3 to 20 minutes depending on the load, but the load can be anything. So yeah, I suspect that the 72 watt load, maybe they had 100 watt load or something like that, and they lost 10 minutes more than we had. So we're sort of inside of a specification, but yeah, it doesn't really say anything about efficiency. So let's say that we had 0.525 hours, but instead of 72 watts, let's say 72 watts plus about, yeah, maybe if it's 80% efficient in the conversion and including all the other electronics for the display and so on. So let's add 20%. 86.4 times 0.525 hours then. So that's 45.36 watt hours, which is still quite a bit lower than the 84 nominal capacity in the battery. But of course, we don't know if the battery was, I mean, the specification is one thing, but maybe instead of 7 amp hours it's actually closer to 6 amp hours as well. So with some losses and minus some lower perhaps capacity on the battery than specified, maybe we're closing in there. So yeah, but for purposes like connecting a PC that draws say 150 watts or 200 watts even, you should get a couple of minutes of runtime. And if it draws 150 or 200 watts, that is not idle. So if your PC is doing something, some important work, perhaps some calculations or something, then if you can, using the software, if you can make it pause any power-hungry applications or processes on your computer once the power outage happens, then a usual computer which is in idle on CPU and GPU and isn't too heavily overclocked, I mean, maybe you're down to 60, 70 watts. Of course, also depending on your power supply efficiency. So yeah, and if you're using it for to connect a router or an LTE modem, NAS, network switch, some smart device hubs, stuff like that, then yeah, it should at least, if your power outage is less than 10 minutes in that case, it should be fine. And yeah, so I like the footprint of it, I like the display. It's pretty quiet. I would have liked to seen, of course, a longer runtime for the load here that we had. But at the same time, I mean, at this price that I bought it for about $42 US, I mean, that was a steal, basically. And I saw on Amazon that it actually dropped in price again to the same level now, down from about $76 or $77 previously. So I have ordered a second one, and I'll place it at my parents' place, so their router and PC can survive a power outage. So yeah, this is it for this UPS. I think that I will have a second part to this, where I install the software and connect USB cable and see if we can control this unit and read some more values and set some settings, what should happen when we have a power outage. But worthy of note is that this unit does not come with an included USB lead, so you have to buy that one yourself. And it's a USB type B port, so you need some printers. If you are familiar with the USB leads that usually printers use, so it's the same one. So I shall find a USB lead, and until next time, when we have a look at that, I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next part. Bye bye.